All right, but why don't we continue? We've made it to Hong Kong. I took the first entire full day that I was in Hong Kong to just sleep because, um, yeah, traveling for that long from nonstop of like driving to the airport, then getting onto the plane, then getting onto another plane, and not really having a break to rest in between, and crashing through, I don't know, 12-ish time zones really did a number on my body. So I was like, I'm going to sleep when I get to the hotel. So the entire first day that I spent in Hong Kong, I just slept. And where I stayed in Hong Kong was on Hong Kong Island itself in an area called Wan Chai. And so that was, no, that's central. Wan Chai. So I was over here. I was actually, there's a ferry dock. I was here. So this was in Wan Chai. Then there's like Central, and this is where all the main ferry terminals are on Hong Kong Island itself. Up here is Kowloon, and then from here it's like way over here is Macau. But yeah, so I stayed in Wan Chai. That is, honestly, it's like the traditional, like traditional old Hong Kong Island area. I could be wrong about that, but that's sort of like where like a lot of the British and like the shipbuilding stuff was going on the island. So my first day, I went down and I saw the Golden Bahunia statue, which was just down by the waterline from the hotel. And then from there, I walked all the way up and I went to see some of the Taoist temples in Hong Kong, which was a thing that was definitely on my list. So my first stop was to, is it in here? I can't remember if it is. I did go to Manmo, but that was not. I went to Wan Chai. Yeah, I think it might not have been Hung Shing Temple, but it was definitely Wan Chai Temple. And that was actually really cool because Taoists and Buddhists have a lot of overlap in their sort of the figures that they use in their iconography and stuff like that, which all have to some extent a corresponding overlap with like Western religious figures and ideas of like saints and other things like that. And so if you understand one, you can kind of understand the other. It won't be perfect, but I'm not a perfect understander of all of it. My main sort of connection with Taoism is through things like the writing of Lao Tzu, and having read different translations of his work, the Tao Te Ching, and then after having done all this, read some more things about Taoist practice. It all makes a lot more sense to me now, what's going on. But at first, it comes off very similar. I would almost say to like Buddhist practice, but there are differences. And of course, like Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism, especially in China, are all mixing together at the same time and developing their own sort of identities out of that. And so there's a lot of overlap between some of these things. And that's a very sort of like Coles Notes version of like trying to explain that. But yeah, like, so I went to Wan Chai Temple, and I went in, and it was actually very cool because I got like a tour of the temple by what I can only assume would be the like sort of like main caretaker of it. And so that was really cool. And so we did a tour of, you know, the different gods and the different sort of worship areas within the temple and what they each sort of identified and were responsible for and all the rest of it. So that was very cool. And then from there, I walked around Wan Chai. I went to like the old post office. I went down to, there is a park nearby that used to be like a place that everybody used to congregate in. I went through like the Ship Square area, I think is what it's, that's probably not what it's called, but I went through that area. I went over to a couple other temples that were there. And then I headed over to Man Mo Temple. That's where I really ultimately wanted to head to on that day. And so I walked all the way across Hong Kong, which was like very humid and very sweaty. But I walked from Wan Chai because this is the mountain here basically. So there's a big mountain ridge that's right here, and so everything is, as it comes toward the water, is getting lower. So as you go up, you're climbing up the side of the mountain basically. And so I went from Wan Chai like over here, all the way over to Central, which is over here, and this is where like Man Mo temples along the way. It's on Hollywood Road. That is the temple for the gods of war and the gods of literature, which I think is really funny because like, which is stronger, the pen or the sword? So I went there, and then I ended up, the very last place that I went to was, I literally forget the name of it all the time, but it's like, there's so many details that I'm like, wait, what was I trying to remember? But it was over near this lake. Oh no, I'm sorry. So even farther, Man Mo Temple is actually farther. It's over here. It's over here. And then I continued on. I want to say it was over here. It was like a cat market or something. It might even called. It's probably not, but I think that's what it was. Anyways, I went there, and I went to a couple other places that were on my list that I wanted to visit at that point in time, and so I did that, and that was actually very nice to be able to do, and it gave me a really good sense of just how like wide Hong Kong is. And yeah, they have a subway and stuff, and you can take the bus across, but yeah, walking around is not for the faint of heart, because it is warm. But while I was there, I also stopped in at the Tea Museum, which is in, this is the Tea Museum. This is actually inside of the old, is it the government house? Or, yeah, the Flagstaff House of Major General Daguerre. And so yeah, there's a museum of tea in it, which is actually really cool because I used to work in a lot of cafes and stuff, and so it was neat to learn about the history of tea in China. And that is inside the main park area of Hong Kong. Is it literally called Hong Kong Park? It might be called Hong Kong Park. Yes, it's in Hong Kong Park, and it's right around the corner from it in sort of like in a somewhat open area. There is a statue of a Canadian soldier there, and that is because during World War II, Hong Kong was still, as part of the 99-year lease, a British possession, and the Japanese laid siege to it, and the British defended it, and one of the units that was there was from Winnipeg. So there were Canadians who were part of the siege of Hong Kong, and there's a statue there to commemorate that for them. And that actually, from there, the last place that they held out at was a place called Jardine Hill, which is not in that part of Hong Kong. Jardine Hill is like over here somewhere. because yeah, like Wan Chai and then Jardine Hill is up here or something. It kind of overlooks Wan Chai, but that was sort of the last place that they held out at. And so yeah, I spent a few days. I spent like almost a week, but like I lost a couple days because I slept so much there. I went to the Hong Kong Maritime Museum. That was actually really cool to learn about the history of China's maritime history, and like their version of sort of like the treasure fleets and stuff like that that used to set out from China to go to like the Middle East on sort of like trade missions and to bring things back and to give things out. So that was actually kind of cool. I went to Kowloon. I did the Walk of Stars. I went over to their version of the Hollywood Star Walk. I went over to the Bruce Lee statue, which was very cool to see in person. And then I went, what else did I do? I went to the Tinhua Temple, which is a god of the sea, which is over on the other side of Victoria Park. I went down and saw the Jardine Noonday Gun, which was kind of cool because like maritime cities sometimes still have a noonday gun. St. John's used to have one up until some point in time. I don't remember it said on the plaque, but Hong Kong still has one and they still fire it off. So if you're walking around in the middle of the day and you hear what sounds like a shell being fired, it's because that's the noonday gun. That's how you know it's new. What else did I do when I was there? I went over to Macau for a day. I took the ferry over to Macau. That was actually kind of cool. I walked around Macau. I went to like Guaya, I think it's Guaya Monastery, Guaya Church Lighthouse, something like that. I had to climb up this like hill to get to it. That was interesting. I went to Ama Temple, which is another sea god. I went to I didn't actually go into any of the casinos. They're all like right at the ferry dock, but I decided to not bother with them because I didn't want to gamble away the money that I had. It's really fun because if you like to collect currency and stuff like that, Hong Kong has its own currency that is the exact same as the Chinese yuan, but it's just a Hong Kong dollar. And the Macau has its own Macau dollar of some kind. And so I have like bills from each of these places that have these things on it, which is kind of fun to like keep as a souvenir as well. But yeah, so I picked up all these things when I was going around. And then I thought Hong Kong was really cool. It was very spread out, like it felt very wide, all the stuff that was in it. But that's because of the geography of the island. And I think had I have spent a couple more days there, I really would have gotten to like see a lot more stuff and felt a little bit better about my time there. But I still loved it. Like what I got to see was still really cool. Like I would have loved to go out to the island with the world's tallest Buddha statue on it. That would have been fun to do. I would have loved to go. I want to say, I think Aberdeen is on the south side of the shore of Hong Kong Island. I would have loved to go like there and check that out, or to climb up like Jardine Hill. That would have been interesting. But yeah, just because like I was tired and I lost a few days to just resting, that took a lot out of me. But then from Hong Kong, I decided I would go to Australia, because I was in the general area, and that would be the first time that I ever crossed the equator going south. So I had enough points for a free stay somewhere, so I ended up going to Melbourne for like a week during what's their winter, which is basically like our fall. And so it was great. Like it was awesome. I really enjoyed Melbourne. I thought it was an interesting kind of city. It kind of felt like Australia's version of Montreal in the sense of like, one, the flag is very similar to Montreal's flag. Two, it used to be like the capital to some extent. It had a big gold boom that was going on. And then once that sort of petered out, the capital moved away to Sydney. And like Montreal used to be sort of the business capital of Canada, and then because of like French language laws and stuff like that, a lot of businesses ended up leaving Quebec and retransplanting to like Toronto as their headquarters instead. And that, like, it was interesting, these parallels between these two cities. But Melbourne was like super cool. I was there during their NIDOC week. It was NIDOC week. It was their Indigenous Film Festival, and I hadn't planned like to be there at any of these times because I didn't know any of these events were going on. But yeah, it was cool. Like, I got there and I didn't have the opportunity to actually go see any movies. So instead I did like a couple things. Like, I did an Aboriginal Melbourne walk, which was like a self-guided walk around town. And I mostly, because I stayed somewhere over, where did I stay? I stayed somewhere over here. There was like a tram station that was right beside it, and you could just get on the tram and go into the rest of Melbourne from there. It was pretty easy. And so of this, I did this entire walk, which was kind of interesting. I ate at Mabu Mabu, which was really good. It's like traditional sort of Australian Indigenous dishes. It's called Mabu Mabu Big Esso. That was really good. I went to Birrarung Mar, which is the Prince's Walk. I visited the art galleries, a bunch of the art galleries and stuff, and saw a bunch of their Indigenous art while I was there. I went to the old Treasury building, which serves as the city history museum, which was really cool. They had a lot of exhibits on like the Yarra River and its connection to Indigenous peoples and how it's like sort of the lifeblood of the community. I went to St. Patrick's Cathedral when I was there. I went to Fitzroy, and I walked around, and I went to some of the like what are they called? Vintage shops in Fitzroy. That was actually kind of cool. And then I went to whatever the place beside Fitzroy is that's like the college side. I forget what that one's called, but I walked around both of those neighborhoods. That was really great. I spent a lot of time in the actual downtown area. And then I went to like the National Gallery and to the War Memorial, the Anzac War Memorial that's in town. So I did all that stuff. That was kind of cool. Yeah, I was in South Bank. That's where I stayed. I stayed over in South Bank. There was a really good Thai place that was like somewhere over here that I went to that was just amazing. It was like absolutely amazing food. So yeah, all of that was really great. There was a pizza place that was really good around there as well, near the Eureka Sky Deck. I really liked that. Carlton and Fitzroy. I walked through Carlton and Fitzroy, yeah. And I had like lunch in Carlton, and yeah, it was just really good. And so it was nice. It was nice just to have sort of like a slow, sort of like week-long visit to a city as like a way to wind down from all of this like major walking around and stuff that I've been doing. So that was really nice. And from there, I then went to Sydney, Australia, which was a lot of fun because I'd seen the what's that Sydney Sweeney movie? The Shakespeare one that she did. Anybody But You? Anyone But You? Something like that. I'd seen that, so like I had like a somewhat kind of idea of like what to sort of expect to see in Sydney. And then I went to Sydney and I loved it. It was great. And like I did the Anzac War Memorial when I was there. I definitely went to the Circular Quay a couple times. I took the ferry out to, I want to say it's Watson's Bay is on the south side, and then I went to Manly Beach, which is on the north side. And that was really cool to get to go walk around and see all that stuff. else did I want to do when I was in town? I went to the Naval Museum. I went to their Naval Museum, and I got to see I got to actually go on board a copy of the HMS Endeavour, which was the ship that Captain James Cook took when he set out to start mapping and exploring the Pacific. He did three voyages through the Pacific, and that was the ship that took him on those voyages. It was a replica of it, obviously, but that was really cool to get to go on, because like you don't really think about how cramped the space inside of those things was. So that was really cool. Especially because I'd been to a bunch of places that he had also been to along the way, as well as like Sir John A. Macdonald says, like Scotland and London and stuff like that. Like there's a lot of Sir John A. Macdonald stuff that's tied in with that, and of course all of this was accidental. Like I didn't plan to do any of these things. The coolest thing I loved about Sydney though was when I was there was they were having a NIDOC week as well. And I went to this jazz vespers at the St. Stephen's Uniting Church, and so it was kind of cool to see this band play these jazzy sort of like hymns and stuff like that. So that was really cool. And yeah, Sydney, I liked Sydney, but I think I preferred Melbourne, just because I think I did slightly more stuff in Melbourne than I did in Sydney. But I mean, I like both of those cities, so that's fine. From Sydney, I then went to Ho Chi Minh City, also known as Saigon, or formerly known as Saigon. And it was kind of funny because I got on the plane, I was reading this Anthony Bourdain book. I was reading Medium Raw, I think, and I finished reading the chapter that I had been reading, and then the next chapter was about how to ended with a story about you can send your private yacht from Sydney to Ho Chi Minh City and then meet it there when you get there. And I just thought that was really funny that I was accidentally following an Anthony Bourdain story now. And so, so I ended up in Ho Chi Minh City. I had no idea what to expect. Usually, before I went someplace, like from Hong Kong and Vietnam, I didn't do any sort of planning in the sense of like, I should probably learn a few phrases or like how to say hello or how to order food. I didn't actually do that for those places. I just kind of picked stuff up as I went, or like a lot of people just spoke English to me, which was fine. And yeah, it was just really weird because like pretty much everywhere that I went, if it was like France, I definitely made sure to practice my French. If it was Japan, I tried to pick up a few Japanese words. If it was South Korea, like I tried to pick up like a few South Korean words. And where else did I go? I think that's Italy. I picked up a little bit of like Italian phrases and stuff like that. But yeah, for some reason, I think it was just because I was like on the road and I didn't think about it beforehand. I wasn't quite sure where I was going next. I was just sort of flying by the seat of my pants. That's why I didn't really do that. But yeah, so I went to Ho Chi Minh City. I landed there. It was really kind of interesting. I thought it was very fun. Like when we landed, they played these Ho Chi Minh folk songs, but like one of them was very much like a rocked up like 1960s one, so it set this like Good Morning Vietnam kind of vibe for the rest of that trip. And yeah, like oh man, I liked Vietnam, but it was so humid. It was so humid. And it's crazy because it's also above the equator. Like I didn't think about this previously, but it's above the equator. I always thought it was on the equator. It is not. Anyways, the first thing that I did there was I went to the Independence Palace. This used to be the center of the government and the South Vietnamese government, and after the fall of Saigon, it's now been converted into a museum of being converted into a museum about the war, and specifically it's been kind of preserved in some ways as what it was when the South Korean government was in control of it. And it's fascinating. And then you go up to the very top floor and there's just like a bar there now. So it's actually really kind of interesting. But yeah, you exit through the bunker in the bottom. It was really interesting. I went to, the Ho Chi Minh Museum, which was really kind of interesting to learn more about Ho Chi Minh's life. And I went to some of the art galleries. So I went to Bao Tang Mai Tuat, the Vietnamese Art Museum, and that was the Fine Arts Museum, and that was really cool. And so this was an art exhibit. Book Song is river, but these are all paintings that are connected to water. So that was actually really cool to go there. Yeah, I don't speak Vietnamese, so I apologize for my accent. But yeah, so I went there. It was really cool. There was all these paintings that were tied into that. A lot of Vietnamese art, especially from like the 50s on, is about the war. And so that was like the major sort of event in Vietnamese history, because like it just continued for forever, from basically the Japanese, even like through the Japanese occupation, but like essentially if you wanted to say like the end of World War II, so 1945, it reverts to, I guess, French control, and then Ho Chi Minh starts, he's already been fighting against the Japanese previous to this, and now he's fighting against the French again, and then from there until 1972 is the end of the Vietnam War. But then they have a couple other things that happen, like there's like a skirmish that they have with China over the border at some point in time. I want to say that they send people to either Cambodia or Laos at some point in time. But yeah, like they were just at war for a very, very long time, like at least a generation, if not 2 generations worth of people. And so it makes sense that a lot of that art is very war centric, and that is very much on what you would find when you go in there. But it was very cool. It was very interesting. I went to Ben Thanh Market. That was really cool. I got some stuff there, which I really enjoyed getting. I went to I want to say it might be the Jade Temple. And then I went to a temple to, I'm going to call her Guan Yin, because that's how I understand her name, but it might be something else. It might be like Quan Chum. But it's the same name. It's just slightly different variations in pronunciation. But yeah, I went to a temple for Guan Yin, who is the goddess of mercy, who is also known as Kannon in Japan. And then I went to, what else did I do when I was there? I walked along the river a lot. The hotel I stayed at actually looked over the river, which was cool, because there was this giant see-through neon billboard across the water from me that was like really interesting to have like flashing in your room all night long, but you could see through it during the day. So it was just really interesting the way that it was constructed, because it wasn't like a traditional billboard of like a LED screen. It was more just like a string of lights that were put up that together made an image, so you could see through it during the day, which was really neat. But yeah, I really liked Vietnam. Vietnam was great. Vietnamese food is fantastic. I just remember it being very humid, and so I was just very sweaty the entire time. But I loved it. I really liked it. And I would totally go back. Especially like all the, I don't think I would rent one, but I would definitely, again, do a tour of like having somebody else drive me around on a scooter. Like that would be fine. I would not rent one myself, but like scooters everywhere. Oh my God, it's so cool. So yeah, so that was 100% the thing that I did. From there, I flew up to the middle of the country and I went to Hue. And Hue became my favorite thing in Vietnam, like by far. So the town of Hue is sort of in the center. It was the Imperial City was there, which is this yellow area on the map. This is the Perfume River. But yeah, the Imperial City of the Nguyen Dynasty was actually held here. And in I want to say it was in 1968, during the Tet Offensive, it was completely leveled, or almost completely leveled. This was some of the most intense fighting of the Vietnamese War happened here. Where I stayed in the Azurai would have been the American side, and this would have been the area that a lot of the Marines would have been fighting in with North Vietnamese during the Tet Offensive. And so this was a really cool place to sort of visit because like it was more rural than the rest of it being in the middle of the country, but it had like a lot of like history to it because of that. And so yeah, I spent the first day just wandering around the Imperial City, listening to the Beatles' Magical Mystery Tour. So a lot of my memories of Hue, especially the Imperial City, are very much tied to Strawberry Fields Forever. And just hearing that song takes me back to just that feeling of wandering around this city. But yeah, like it was really interesting. I walked around the Imperial City. I did some of the other museums and stuff over here, which were really interesting. There was one about like treasures of the royal Nguyen family, essentially. And there was a art exhibit in one of the buildings that was actually dedicated to Ham Nui, who was the Nguyen emperor who was kidnapped by the French and taken in like the 1800s. He led his army led a resistance against the French occupying forces, and they just picked him up and took him back to France. And he learned how to paint. And the thing that like stood out to me was one of the paintings looked very much like the area around St. Malo, and it turns out that's one of the places that he stayed, and that's what he had painted. And then he went to, I think he ended up in Algeria or something for the rest of his, either Algeria or Morocco for the rest of his exile, his life in exile. But they had some really cool stuff, really interesting stuff. Like there was, this is the Cao Dai temple, I'm pretty sure, and Cao Daism is like this weird, well, it's a religion, so it's, I guess it's not super weird, but like it's a mishmash of Taoism, Christianity, Buddhism, and there's a couple other things that are mixed into it, and it's called Cao Daism, and it's really interesting. I tried to go in, but I was wearing shorts and they wouldn't let me because I was being disrespectful to the place. But everywhere else that I went with shorts was totally fine. But they were very strict about dress code, and that's totally fine. That's their religion, that's their building, they get to call the shots there. But yeah, I stayed at the Azurai. That was really nice. I looked out over the river. At night, sometimes people set off little lanterns as if it was like New Year's, which is Tet. And so that was kind of cool to see at night every once in a while. I went on a I hired a guy who did motorcycle tours who took me from down here because I was trying to take a boat over to Chiang Mai Pagoda because I wanted to go see this place because there was if you're familiar with the American rock band Rage Against the Machine, their first album has a photo actually of a man self-immolating on the front of it, and that is I always forget how to pronounce his name. I'll figure it out some point in time. Anyways, he's a very famous Buddhist from Vietnam, and he rebuilt a lot of the temples in central Vietnam. And in Saigon, you can actually go to I walked over to it, and there is a shrine dedicated to him at the street corner where he, self-immolated. And the car that carried him to his self-immolation is actually at the Tien Mu Pagoda. And so I wanted to go to the Tien Mu Pagoda because I just wanted to see the pagoda. I had forgotten that the car was there until I was walking around the grounds, and then I was like, oh, that's the car sitting in the garage. So yeah, I hired a guy who took me over there. That was really cool. And then we went out to I want to say it's Tuan An Beach area. And there was like a covered bridge that we went to over there. And then he brought me back in. And then the next day I went to one of the guys who worked at the Azurai offered to take me out to the Kai Din and Man Ming tombs. And so there's a bunch of like the emperors are actually buried here. And so from the Azurai, we went down by scooter down to these two places. And I had actually convinced him that we should try to go to the Hun Chen Temple, Hun Chen Pagoda. And so if Tien Mu Pagoda is the pagoda to like the Celestial Lady, this is apparently the site where a Celestial Lady came down to Earth, and she like landed and said, this is where I want you to build a temple for me. Hun Chen Pagoda is more of a traditional sort of area that people went to, and it's a temple of like the mother, but it's also a temple of like the mountain that it's at. And so we went to it, and in order to get to it, we had to like follow the river. There's this little dirt road that we went along on the river, and there was a bunch of like construction going on, so we had to like weave around the construction on this dirt road. And we finally got to the pagoda. It would have been way easier if we had a boat, but whatever. And they were just getting ready to start their annual celebration of the mother of the mountain, or the mother goddess of the mountain, something like that. And so there was already a boat there that was like ready, full of like gifts and everything like that. And there was a bunch of people who were there who were going through the rites of their practice for this. And it was really interesting to have just stumbled across this on the day that we went. And then from there, I went back to the airport. It took about 30 to 40 minutes to get to the airport from there. But I went back, and then I headed off to Hanoi. When I got to Hanoi, I had pre-booked a bunch of tours through the hotel because I felt Hanoi might actually work better for that kind of thing. And it did actually. So I kind of had like a private tour guide of Hanoi, which was really cool. And like we went to the Confucian School, the Temple of Literature. We went for lunch. I got the sense that it was kind of like a prepackaged thing, and there was always these like businesses that you would go to that were like clearly government sponsored, government run sort of things. But it was, they were like all tied into this sort of idea. And it was just kind of interesting. Like that part was kind of interesting, but having somebody who like understood the language, taking you into a restaurant and all the rest of it, that was like super helpful. Hue, the other great thing about Hue is they have a traditional soup that's from there that's slightly different from pho, and it's called bun bo hue, and it is like a spicy soup that has 3 different kinds of meat in it. It's really freaking good. I highly recommend it if you have the opportunity. But yeah, bun bo hue, the best. Anyways, so we went to a bunch of museums. We went to see Ho Chi Minh's actual house that he lived in during the war. The Canadian Embassy is actually right beside the square where his tomb is. So that was kind of fun as part of the tour to be like, oh yeah, here's this thing. We went to one of the oldest, uh, I want to say, Buddhist temples in Vietnam. Is in Hanoi, and then I also went to the Taoist temple, which is down the street from it, on my own a few days later, and that is in what's their West Lake, which is really funny because I grew up in a place that has a West Lake, and across the street from it is the lake and a monument to John McCain, who had crash landed in Hanoi during the war and was then captured and imprisoned. And so across the street from that, the oldest, I want to say, Buddhist temple is the temple for, or is a monument to John McCain. And what else did we do when we were there? We did some other stuff when we were there. We went to the Museum of like Ethnology. There are like, I might be wrong about these numbers, but there's something like 7 different dialects of Vietnamese or something like that. That was really interesting to learn, that it's not just one homogenous language. We went to a few other sort of, like you got to see like Ho Chi Minh's office where he like slept, and the desk that he wrote all of his speeches and gave orders from and all the rest of it. That was cool. We got to play like a traditional Vietnamese guitar kind of thing. That was kind of interesting. And then went through like more old Hanoi, and did like a bike tour, like a bike cart tour. That was kind of interesting. And then the second day, I did a trip of a boat tour of Halong Bay, which was really cool because Halong Bay is where they filmed Man with the Golden Gun. And so we pulled up at this little island and wandered through this cave system, which was like super cool. And the entire time, all I could think of was like Man with the Golden Gun. And yeah, that island was, it was in the general area, but you couldn't actually go to visit it anymore. So that was fine. Or I think you could, but you had to pay for a different kind of tour than we were on. But that was kind of fun. I met some people on the boat who were like super fun to chat with. And then we went to this secondary island called T-Top Island, which is named after a Russian cosmonaut who visited Ho Chi Minh during the war as part of like a propaganda effort. And they named this island after him. And so that island was kind of interesting in the sense of like you could climb to the top of it and get this really cool panoramic view of all the islands around you and like all the boats, all the tour boats and stuff, but it was like super small and super crammed. So yeah, but overall, like the cruise day was really, really cool. And then the third day, I went out to Ninh Binh province, which is the first site of like the Vietnamese kings, I guess, who then they go from Ninh Binh to Hanoi and move the center of power to Hanoi after they take it over. And so that was kind of interesting. They had a giant field-sized chessboard. So like like the Harry Potter Chamber of Secrets or whatever, where they have to become the chess pieces and move around. It was that was the size of the board. It was massive. It was this huge field. That was really kind of cool to see. But yeah, it rained a lot that day, and then we went to we did a rowboat tour of this place called Tam Coc, which is this limestone sort of cave system, and you go along the river and they literally just row you underneath these, this cave. There's like 3 of them that you go through, tunnels that you go through, and it's really, really low. So you have to like basically almost like lie flat down on the boat at some point in time. It's very interesting though. But like during the war, people actually went Vietnamese people went there to hide out from the bombing and stuff because it was the safest place to be. And so that's where they went, and it's like kind of an ecological preserve as well now. But yeah, that was really interesting. And then what was the other thing? We climbed up on top of some. Yeah, we had to climb up on top of some mountain for some other viewpoint of some kind. Oh, we went through a lotus field. That was kind of cool. The lotus field was really cool. Because yeah, it was this giant field of lotus with like a plank walking deck board in front of it. That was sweet. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. And then I had another day in Hanoi just to myself. So then I went back and did some other stuff. Like I went to the Taoist Temple, and I went to the art museum, where I hilariously bumped into some European Union official visit. And so it was like they were walking down the hall. I was standing there just like watching them come. And this mad crush of photographers ran up, and I just kind of like flattened up against the wall as they went by. And yeah, it was very strange. I'm sure there are like outtakes of me just standing there like being like, what the heck is this? What's going on? And then I continued on my way. And then I went from Hanoi back to Japan. For a second time, I went back to Tokyo. I'd made a mental note, but I hadn't actually thought about it, even until I got back to Tokyo, that I wanted to see a Japanese baseball game, but I also wanted to be in Japan on the anniversary of Hiroshima, because I wanted to see how they celebrated it, or how they commemorated it. And so I ended up getting tickets for the Hiroshima Carp Tokyo Giants game at Tokyo Dome that was happening on the anniversary date, and watched the Hiroshima Carp beat the hometown team. It was like 5-1 or 5-0 or something like that. And so that was awesome, because I was like, I'm a Hiroshima Carp fan, and I just got to watch them win this game. This was super cool, on the anniversary of Hiroshima, which I think that was the 79th anniversary. But yeah, that was such a cool experience. I went go-karting through the streets. That was awesome. That was super worth it. I went with this couple who were on their way to do a cruise of the island, of the main island, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. Like, driving go-karts is fun to begin with. Driving them down like a street with actual cars is even funner, and doing it in a city that like there's just all kinds of crazy stuff happening when you look around. That was like super cool. So yeah, that's like a total highlight of my experience of it. I went to the origami museum when I was there, which was kind of interesting. And then I decided I wanted to sort of extend my trip a little bit longer, push my time away from home for a little bit longer. And I decided to go to, but yeah, this was my Giants guide that I got when I went to watch that game. So that was pretty cool. So yeah, I decided to push my run a little bit longer, and I went to Osaka for a few days. And I hadn't been to Osaka before, but Osaka is the water city or something, because it had all the canals, and it was the traditional sort of a harbor where they exported and imported everything too. And that was a really cool experience. I went to Osaka Castle, which features in Shogun, and that was really cool to get to learn more about that time period of Japanese history. And like I walked around the entire grounds. I also got to go out and see I went to the Osaka, the actual city museum of history. That was pretty cool. And then I went to oh, that's gonna bug me. I went to a couple art museums when I was there, and one of them had an exhibit actually on, and it was apparently pretty rare that they have this because they're somewhat spread out. But I think it was Hiroshige art prints, or Hokusai. It was either Hokusai or Hiroshige. I can't remember. But it was just all their art prints collected together, or as many of them as they could find, collected together. So that was like super cool to see, because it's like you rarely get to see it because they're spread out around the world. And so that was really unique and special. And what else did I do? I went to this temple where during the siege of Osaka Castle, one of the commanders was a Honda, and he something. I think all of his men died because he was really drunk, and so he fled the scene because he was really inebriated, and he vowed to never drink again because of that or something, and he's become sort of a figure that you would go to if you're like interested in sobriety and changing habits and things like that. So I went to visit him because I had actually stopped drinking. By that point in time, I was sober for 4 full years. I'm now sober for 5 full years, and at that point in time, it was interesting to go there because, yeah, after I got sober, I bought a vehicle again for the first time, and the vehicle that I bought was a Honda CR-V that I drove around North America. So I just thought this was like, it was a very interesting connection, confluence of events, coincidences, if you will. But yeah, I liked Osaka. Osaka was really cool. And then I went to the Tsutenkaku Tower, which was really cool. It's kind of like their like CN Tower. It's just this, yeah, it's this giant tower that you can go up and then you can see the observation deck. But it's also like a point of like power or something like that. It's like it's like a power spot. It's supposed to be a good luck power spot, and they have all of these Japanese gods there. So like Abisu, Daikokuten, Benzaiten, Hotai, Jirojin, Kichijoten, and Bishamonten are there, but also they have a god that is kind of like a local god, but really is a St. Louis god. They're the god of, they were created in St. Louis in like the 1920s or 30s. Their name is Billiken, and the Billiken is the god of things as they should be, or something like that, and you're supposed to rub his feet to get good luck, or to like make a wish or something like that. And so yeah, it's really kind of interesting that this like god that was like created or born in St. Louis has made it across the Pacific to Osaka, where he has taken hold of this, you know, of the town, but also of this like tower within the town. And it's just, yeah, it's really fantastic to me. But yeah, it was great. I loved it. And so yeah, Japan was like awesome the second time, and like I really enjoyed Japan, and I would love to go back to Kyoto. I have this temple book, and so what you're supposed to do is every temple that you visit, you present this book, and you get somebody will hand stamp a sort of like a passport photo into it for you. That's not exactly what it is, but it's a memento of the fact that you visit. This one's from Kinkakuji, and so you can buy them pre-made, or you can buy them this one's from Daisho, and this is on Miyajima Island, and so it's a means of pilgrimage and a means of, you know, commemorating that sort of thing. So I have this book that, yeah, it would be nice to maybe put some more into at some point in time. Kyoto would be really great to go to do that. And yeah, so yeah, that was Japan. And then the last place that I went to Europe again. So I'm going to charge this phone up a little bit, and then I will be back to tell you more about that.